In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the collapse of the middle class, why it's dead, and what you can do to escape the middle class. I'm going to explain the middle class fallacies, the rhetoric that traps you into being middle class, and why it's not working any longer. By the end of this video, you're going to have a completely different perspective on the middle class. It is not something that you should aspire to, and I believe that its downfall is righteous. This video only affords you two paths. You can stay middle class and aspire to be middle class, but what does that mean? It means you're going to live a UBI lifestyle, you're going to live in the pod, but what's the alternative? The alternative is individualism and breaking away from the mold. You can either be the 99% or the 1%. That really is the binary which exists nowadays. Before we get started, subscribe to Tycoon Jack to learn more real life money making strategies. So I want to start off this video talking about the olden days, particularly post World War II and the era that baby boomers grew up in. This was typically the era of high home ownership, property owning democracies, the welfare state. Living conditions during this time were considered to be quite high. People were able to drop out of school, find a good job, buy a house, and that was the system that we largely had until the neoliberal era in the 1980s.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
There's a lot of reminiscing for this era, when the state looked after people. But really, what does that actually mean? When people say that the middle class is now dying, and that the state needs to do more to help the middle class, what are they actually trying to say? They're happy to be completely average people. What I believe they're saying when they say that the middle class is dying and that it's a problem in particular is that you can no longer be an average person, a lazy person. You can't just drop out of high school, stumble into some job, marry someone from your town, buy a house, raise a family. Life is not that easy anymore, but I do consider that to be a good thing. But in this last decade, since around 2015, we've really seen the demise of the middle class really take root. Post 2008, the first domino to fall was the housing market. Where I live, New Zealand, was particularly quite expensive, even by 2015. Back in the olden days, it used to be possible to buy a house about 3 times your average income. Now that ratio is about 10 times. It's a little bit easier if you have a partner who works, but otherwise if you're single, it is not possible to purchase a house anymore. For a decade now, on social media, I've seen people complain about the price of housing in New Zealand, particularly losers on Reddit who talk about housing. Whether they're right or they're wrong, what have they done in that time since 2015? And back then, in 2015, houses were only 700,000 in New Zealand. You only have to go forward 5-6 years to 2020, 2021. The average house price in Auckland increased to 1.3 million. What was their solution to try and change the situation that they were in 2015 onwards? Did they try to improve themselves at all? No. What they tried to do is that they tried to outsource the problem to someone else to solve. They thought that voting would be the solution. So in 2017, late 2017, we elected a Labour government who promised to build 100,000 houses in New Zealand and sell them at a subsidised rate. 3 years later, house prices were at their worst point in terms of affordability than compared to any other time frame in New Zealand history. People thought that voting was the quick fix solution that would help get them into a house. They didn't do anything else but vote. They thought that action one day out of every 3 years, 1100 days, would be the day that changes their life. But what did they do in between those 3-year terms of government that we have here in New Zealand? Did they try to become more exceptional people in that time frame? Did they try improve their income at all? Did they wonder, how can I scale the top of this ladder? No, what they continued to do was just complain on social media as houses got more and more out of reach, which really toppled the middle class to start with. So this really was the first domino to fall for the middle class, especially here in New Zealand, but it's also a worldwide phenomenon. People on social media in particular, commentators, have tried to blame everything rather than looking at themselves to see what the problem is. They've tried to blame rich landlords the tax system, a lack of capital gains tax, a lack of stamp duty, wealth tax, immigration. Now, whether or not these are right or wrong, what has blaming anyone actually done to help them get into a house and to ride the property ladder upwards? Even if they're right, doesn't make any actions possible. They are not in a house. They are rent forever losers. They're going to be continuously salty about not ever owning a house, even though 1 decade ago, in 2015, when house prices were significantly lower than they are today, they were complaining back then about how impossible it was. But this does represent genuinely a collapse of the middle class. It is not easy to buy a house anymore, and that is true. But do you want to be a victim about it and complain non-stop, or is there something that you can do about it? Even if the system is wrong, even if it's the system that's at fault and there's some massive Ponzi scheme, it's better to be part of the Ponzi scheme, if it is one, than it is to wait by the sidelines and hope and living your entire life in misery while you wait for this one variable to improve. I'm not even giving an opinion on whether or not this is good or bad, but what I'm saying is that the strategy of complaining, voting, and hoping that someone else will fix the problem has not worked. It has not yielded good results. Nothing ever falls into your lap. Nobody else is ever going to make things easy for you. Now, the second domino to fall is actually dating. It's a lot harder to date nowadays because of social media and also dating apps which promote hookup culture. The thing that's good about social media, particularly for women, is that they're able to now choose the man that they want to be with at any given time. They don't have to settle for anyone in their immediate vicinity. Let's say back in the 1980s, it was not that common for you to date someone across the country or even from the next town. You typically settled on the person that you might have gone to school with or perhaps worked with. But because of social media, a girl can upload herself to Instagram and post really nice photos, but she's able to attract quite a large following across the world who might be simps, but they do raise the bar for everyone else. Now, for the woman, that's actually an excellent thing for her, but for the guy and for society and trying to start a family and increase birth rate, it's a disaster unless she's able to settle down with someone that she actually likes. Dating has become globalised. If there's a really attractive woman, let's say in New Zealand, it might be by chance that she gets noticed by some Dubai prince who is able to fly her out, put her up in a nice hotel, and give her a nice lifestyle in the UAE. But it is a real life factor that you must consider. And some of these people, they're not ugly, they happen to have money, they have power, but it just goes to show that you cannot settle anymore. You cannot just stumble into life and have things work out. That's just not the world that we live in anymore. Since we're on the topic of social media, we also shouldn't forget all the bottom feeders that all trawl through her social media and comment and like. I'm sure you know who I'm alluding to, the ones that say you're beautiful, send Bob, but they are the ones causing inflation in this element. So dating is a lot more difficult than it used to be, and I consider that the second domino to fall for the middle class. You just cannot be mediocre anymore when it comes to dating. You can't just fall out of high school, talk to someone that you used to go to school with, and then have a family. That's just not how life works anymore. But what is the solution to that problem? A lot of people will just say it's the fault of society. Maybe it's the influence of social media in a negative sense, and I might see that as a problem. But even if you complain, and you might be right, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but what difference is it going to make between now and when action might be taken, which could be decades away? That's assuming action does get taken on the matter. What's going to solve the problem for you immediately? Again, should you complain about systemic factors? Even if you're right, what does complaining about systemic factors actually do for you? Doesn't get you any closer. You're hedging your bets that one vote every 3 years is what's going to make the difference for you, and that someone else really cares about you. But that's just not the case. We've seen it ourselves. Voting does not work for making things better. Now, the third domino to fall is stable employment. Now, wages have never been good in New Zealand in particular. We're now at the point with increasing interest rates and also the development of technology with artificial intelligence, AI, that unemployment is an issue. Now, I'm not sure of the extent of that unemployment and how far it'll go, but needless to say, you can no longer be an average person. People used to look at jobs very negatively. The mainstream attitude towards employment is that it's a pain in the ass, it's a burden, it's something that you have to do, but you don't enjoy it, and you take advantage of the employer every step of the way. You only have to look at the anti-work community on Reddit to see how pervasive that mentality is. Since 2021, with the increase of interest rates, unemployment has started to take hold. Parallel to that has been the increase and development of AI. Even if it doesn't cause any unemployment and the whole thing is a hoax, it's still the sentiment which causes damage. It's the lack of confidence in hiring, and it's also the willingness to try out AI in the meantime. People used to think that they could just stumble into a job and take sick days whenever they want. I really do not believe that is possible anymore. You really do have to be a lot more disciplined and appreciative of a job, even if it is absolutely terrible. In New Zealand, IKEA, which is a furniture retailer across the world, is opening up a warehouse in New Zealand, a flagship warehouse. They have advertised 500 jobs. 15,000 people have applied for those jobs. That's 30 people per job competing for what would be otherwise minimum wage work. It is not glorious office work where you're getting paid a decent amount like people might in Silicon Valley. This is for work that is barely above minimum wage. Hard work. Goes to show how much the job market has turned, where in 2020, 2021, people were fobbing off job opportunities and thinking that they could jump from job to job, but now we're at the point where job security is of the essence. If unemployment does become enough of an issue, the middle class will largely end up on UBI. If that ever comes to be. Is UBI the type of life that you want to live? Everyone has the same amount of money coming in. Everyone will have the same living conditions. So what will actually make you different in that type of environment? But with these three dominoes in mind, what's the world like for a lot of young men? They have no chance of ever owning a home. They're not able to date. So a lot of them become incels. And a lot of them can't just find a good job, but any job at all. So they're also NEETs. Is that the type of person you want to become? Now you might think, oh, voting, that's going to make all the difference. Maybe if I vote for Obama or Bernie Sanders or AOC, it'll make the difference. It will not help in any way whatsoever. People keep thinking that their only chance to improve their living standards is once every 3 or 4 years when elections happen. How many times do people need to be fooled on this matter to see that the system that they're depending on to change their lives is not working? It's not even that it's the system at fault. It's their fault for thinking that someone else cares about them and is going to make the changes for them, rather than them making a change for themselves. In 2008, people voted for Obama with the hope that he would change America and make it better, and by extension, people's lives. Trump was elected for the same reason, Joe Biden, and in the future it will be AOC. People think that one day is their chance to change their lives. But what are they doing in between that time? In between that 1100 days, 3 years here in New Zealand, or about 1450 days in America. Those are days, individual days, where they could be taking action and changing their own lives. It's not easy, and I'm not saying that it is. Time and time again, you see people complaining about the same thing over and over and over again, and they keep doing the same thing, voting, and listening to idiots, and thinking that it's going to make a difference. But where has it gotten them? It's really just the easy way out, to vote and think that you're making a difference, and that this is going to be your solution. But what you're doing is just adapting a victim mentality and outsourcing the blame to someone else. It's not even about the points that the politicians are making or their worldview. Maybe the system is wrong, but what's complaining about it doing? What's complaining about it on X and Reddit doing? What's participating in these leftist community doing? They keep trying to blame the system or some other factor for them not realizing their potential. But are they actually putting in the work themselves? to change their own lives. Because I see a lot of people blaming the tax system, the rich, perhaps some religion, I'm not going to go there, immigration, business owners, student loans, medical debt. There's always an excuse that seems to come out. What I don't see people doing is saying, what can I do to change the situation that I am in? What can I do? Because whatever I'm voting for in this current strategy is not working for me. It is not changing my life. My life has not improved between now and 4 years ago, or even a decade ago. In fact, the common narrative seems to be people talking about how their living standards are beneath that of their parents. Well, if that's the case, why don't you do something to change it instead of just complaining about it? Even if it's unjust, it is what it is. It's the cards that you've been dealt with. So I want to use an analogy. Back in the 1990s, North Korea had a famine. This was caused by natural disasters, but also the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the public system, which rations out food to people in North Korea, came to a collapse. People did not have any food to eat whatsoever. This was a systemic failure. Now, people could have had a coup and tried to overthrow the North Korean government, but that's not what they did. The believers of the system ended up perishing, waiting for their ration, which never came. The survivors were those who took individual action. They're the ones who illegally went into China, started to trade, which was illegal in North Korea, and smuggled food back in to North Korea to sell. Now, all of this was illegal, and it still is illegal in North Korea because they are a socialist country. But those who rebelled against the system officially were those who ended up living in the end. Those who believed in the system and that one day it'll come and that there'll be results and outcomes, they're the ones who ended up passing away during this famine. To see the continued difference of personal responsibility, you only have to look at the quick rise of Gary's Economics on YouTube. Gary's Economics is a channel which discusses wealth inequality. His solution is to introduce a wealth tax in the UK. Now, whether he's right or he's wrong, what are people doing by supporting Gary's Economics? They are taking on a victim mentality. They are outsourcing the solution to someone else. Even if they get what they want, a wealth tax for the UK will not make a difference in improving their day-to-day lives. They are doing anything but taking individual responsibility. Where is all this complaining and blaming someone else getting you? It is not improving your lives. There is a reason why the middle class is continuing to shrink day in and day out. You need to start thinking about taking action of your own, or you can just go with the tide, which is decreasing every day. One of the reasons why the middle class is shrinking every day is that people are just too lazy to defend their current position within the middle class. They are going down with the ship. People are doing anything but taking individual action and trying to fix the problems on their own. But they would rather not do that. They would rather just continue to complain on social media and thinking that voting is going to make the difference for them, rather than taking action in between the periods of voting to improve their own lives. I really believe that with people not wanting to take action of their own, they are completely content with the decrease and decline of the middle class. They are more than happy to receive UBI. They don't actually want to put in any effort, and UBI is something for them to actually aspire to because they have no intention of being great individuals of their own. They want to collect UBI, never go to work, watch Netflix all day, order DoorDash, and they're happy living that life. Don't get me wrong, in historical terms, compared to the poverty of 500 years ago, it's a very comfortable life to have, but it's not a life of greatness. It's not something that you should aspire towards. It's not the worldview of someone great, someone who has a life worth actually living. It's a worldview of a loser, someone who doesn't want to aspire towards greatness, someone who just wants to go with the tide, someone who's just happy to have their own immediate needs met in the here and now, and I don't care about the future. If you only want to be average, if you want to half-ass everything, if you want to just have things fall into place without you putting in any actual action whatsoever, then why should anything actually work out for you? What have you done to deserve that? You're just talking about how people, baby boomers, had a life of comfort and therefore you're entitled to it. But you're not talking about your own participation and what you have done for yourself to enjoy that kind of life that the baby boomers grew up in and that they got to experience. You just want to stumble into that position and have the same thing that everyone else had, even though you haven't done anything yourself to improve your own circumstances and to be someone who has earned that. I must admit, I'm kind of glad the middle class is on the decline, for the reason being that subpar individuals can no longer stumble into a life of privilege. Letting people who put in no effort whatsoever into their own lives and just stumble into a comfortable existence is a privilege. It's not something that we should aspire our society towards. It's not a feat of individual greatness to have all these things work out, but what it does mean is that it makes life for mediocre people very, very easy. But you don't have to be mediocre. The system post World War II was the aberration, not the norm, and it's never going to come back. I dislike how, when it comes to the discussion of the middle class and how its decline is a negative, that we are defending people being absolutely average, the nails who don't stick out. In a sense, we want people to be mediocre when we say that we want a large middle class. We want people who all live the same lifestyles, who are easy to govern, who don't actually speak out, who aren't a problem. That's an easy society to control, but let's not go there. The brutal truth, I believe, that even though those 3 dominoes that I've mentioned previously have fallen, a lot of people don't want to put in any effort whatsoever to improve their own life circumstances. In a sense, it's not a bad thing that girls don't want to date you. It's not a bad thing that you can't afford a home. It's not a bad thing that you can't gain employment. The only way you wanted to ever acquire those things was through being average, through just stumbling through life and having things fall into your lap. You never actually wanted to put in any effort whatsoever. If you want to start changing your life, you need to start now. This isn't something that changes with a New Year's resolution. It's not something that changes when you decide to vote, and it's especially not going to happen with any social media commentary on the demise of the middle class. Retweeting Bernie Sanders is not going to improve your own life. In fact, I would say there's a lot of people who have created an industry around keeping you down. It's not in their interest to have you uplifted and improving your own life circumstances. Let's say the system was able to be repaired. Suddenly, there wouldn't be a need for you to watch their commentary and news reports on YouTube. You wouldn't be retweeting them on X anymore now, would you? You wouldn't be turning out to their local community meetings and fundraising events for their political causes. If you want to take a very cynical view of this, they keep promising that they will give you a better life. They keep dangling that this election is going to be the election which changes things for you. If they actually did improve issues, you wouldn't need to vote for them anymore. But they are able to deploy grievance politics pertaining to class issues to keep you in the rat race. The Young Turks, Secular Talk, Gary's Economics, they don't actually want you to improve your life, because if you did, you wouldn't need to watch them anymore. You wouldn't care about introducing single payer healthcare into America. You wouldn't need student loan relief. You wouldn't need their solutions anymore that they peddle. Again, that's taking a very cynical view, and I like to assume the best in people. In this part of the video, I want to talk about the solutions. There are things that you can do, you yourself can do, to change your own life circumstances and to improve them for the better. You do not have to be low flying on the middle class Erebus plane about to crash into the mountain. You can escape before it is too late. If you are truly pissed off about declining living standards and your own affairs in life, then you need to start listening to these steps in the video. There are only a few steps, but I do believe that they are a good solution. They will actually help you out in life, unlike thinking that voting is going to make any difference for you. The truth is that with the collapse of the middle class, we are moving away from the scale of poor, rich, and middle class in the middle. It's now a binary of 99% and 1%. Who do you want to be? And it's not just one variable that you need to start working on. It's multifaceted, but all these things do work in harmony with each other. It's not enough to just have money, but you must also be fit, be attractive, have charisma, and be a person of prominence, especially in this attention economy. It's also best if you're the 1% of all the variables which I've mentioned. No longer can you just stumble into things accidentally working out for you. That's just not how life works. Now, the most important variable, and the one that I'll start off with, is the need for money. You don't even need to have a lot of money, but having a little bit does go a long way for improving your own life as an individual. The common narrative on social media seems to be you need to have a side hustle, but I do not believe that having one stream of income is enough. You need to think about having 4 or 5 different streams of income coming in. You don't need to have all that much money in the grand scheme of things for that to be attainable. And it's not about having money for the sake of being a materialistic pig, but rather out of necessity and to give you flexibility and freedom. Money is the best problem solver. Having a little bit of money in the bank does give you the peace of mind to truly be yourself and to be free. By no means am I a millionaire myself. I am not speaking from any type of pedestal. Even at my level of wealth, I feel free to speak my mind at my work. I'm not stressed about finances, and I can actually live the life I want to live within reason. I don't have to put up with anyone's crap. I really believe that I can be true to myself, and you can too. You don't even need to have that much money for that to be the case. Now, a lot of people on YouTube talk about how dropshipping is the solution, or to start an SMMA agency. And it's not enough that they just talk about those opportunities, if you can call them that, but they demean work at the same time in order to sell those courses and to push their own businesses. I actually do not take a negative view of work, and you shouldn't either. If we are going into a UBI world, having any type of job is winning compared to UBI. If UBI is $20,000 a year, getting paid $40,000 a year is winning. The contemporary narrative is that if you're not earning $100,000, you're in poverty and it's over for you. But any work and any income coming in is better than nothing. The most detrimental part of a job, I will say, is settling and being content with it. You always need to be looking at the next step and the next way to elevate yourself and to move yourself forward. If you have a job in the meantime, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Jobs are really the only realistic way to get some serious money in. You can try out dropshipping, but you're going to be waiting for a ramp up time, and you're also depending on very thin margins, and you're also going to be experimenting and putting your own capital at risk. And for what? It might not work out. A job is probably the best thing that you can actually have. Even if your employment is terrible, it's better than nothing. And with rising unemployment across the world, being employed is better than having zero. On my point about needing more than one income stream, you need to have about 4 or 5. One is your work. The second one is having interest income on your savings, even though that's completely menial. You have about 10,000 saved, 3% assumed return. That'll be $300 a year. Barely above official inflation. It's still something that you could potentially draw upon if need be. The third one is having capital gains on investments, and I will talk about how these all come together and how you can also build up your own portfolio so that you yourself can figure out this arrangement. And the fourth one, I would say, is figuring out side hustles and that. Now, you don't even have to do them, but you can apply for these apps such as Uber Eats delivery and get approval. If you ever need the income, you know it's there for you. You should be trying to upskill where possible and make real money. What are the ways that you can actually bring value? But those are immediate ways that you can improve your own life circumstances. You also need to have a look at my other videos where I talk about side hustle income. I do teach you how to get other streams of income coming in without any capital to get started. I believe that you really do not need that much money to be free as an individual and to have a good standard of living. I would say around 50,000 is what you need, with the caveat that all your debt is repaid. That's a net worth of 50,000. 10,000 is for your own savings, immediate needs and emergencies. This is how you will allocate your portfolio. The other 40,000 can be invested in the S&P 500, which will earn an average return of about 10.3% over the long term. That investment will provide an annual capital gain on average of around $4,100 per annum, $80 per week. If it all goes to custard, that 50,000 is around 2 to 3 years of living expenses if you are frugal and if you cut back and if you make sacrifices. That buys you a lot of time, but you should not rest on your laurels if you ever need to draw upon that money. You need to keep pushing forward and looking for new opportunities. It's most important that you keep moving forward. There are so many opportunities out there. You need to keep pushing yourself to go out and claim them. Another thing when it comes to managing finances, it's very important that you are frugal. Materialism is your oppression. Materialism is what locks you down to one location. Instead of being flexible and able to take advantage of all the other opportunities in the world, because you are burdened by materialism, you can't reach your full potential. It's complete leverage over your own freedom. And look at the type of people who are materialist anyway. Is that the type of person you actually want to be? Do you want to be a soy boy with Pokemon cards? I don't think so. Once you own less crap, that's less time you need to spend working in order to sustain the maintenance and insurance for that crap. That's more money that you can keep reinvesting back into yourself. Adding legs to my previous point, having a car is not important at all, especially a nice car. What matters is a functional car. Having a nice car, a nice middle class car, is for normie. Because you spent 50,000 on a car does not make you an exceptional individual. Nobody cares. Nobody sees an average car parked outside and wonders, I wonder who owns that car. It does not matter. It blends in with everyone else's car. The only exception is supercars, but even then, that's just buying your way out, rather than taking actual responsibility and doing any hard work. Luxury European cars, such as BMWs in New Zealand, are driven by the most revolting, disgusting people. Not exceptional people whatsoever, and the cars don't stick out. People who buy them think that they're doing good, but usually it's on financing and they end up having large problems with maintenance later on. And also, another thing which does not help you whatsoever is having expensive clothes. When I talk about expensive clothes, it's not as if I'm talking about people who purchase $50,000 suits. People who buy clothing brands such as Supreme, they spend hundreds of dollars on them, but it all comes from the same factory in Bangladesh anyway, made for cents on the dollar. It's not that much more quality, doesn't look that much better than what everyone else wears. But again, it's an easy solution. People think that purchasing clothes is what's going to make them more exceptional individuals. They are doing everything but putting in hard work and trying to improve themselves. Personally, my view of minimalism is that I want to be as minimal as possible. It's my own personal aspiration that I want to have about 90% of my life's infrastructure out of a backpack. If I have my laptop, my passport, my phone, bit of money, then I'll be fine no matter where I go. Everything else, once you have money, can be sorted out. Money, as I've talked about previously, solves a lot of problems. Typically things aren't that expensive anyway, if you need them, such as purchasing a towel or clothes. You do not need to have that much with you in order for you to have a good life, no matter where you go. The second variable, which is very important as well, is being fit. This is the hard part for a lot of people. They would rather buy cars, clothes, material things, rather than putting in the hard work. Well, this is the hard work. They don't want to do push-ups. What you need to do in order to excel in this realm is to do push-ups. You need to walk everywhere. You perhaps need to get a gym subscription. Even for me, and I'm pretty active, this is a work in progress. I want to do more push-ups. I don't want to be a hypocrite just talking about these things. I myself am trying to execute on this. But maybe the reason why some of you can't date is that you might be skinny, but you are still skinny fat. And that is not enough in this day and age. It doesn't look good on Instagram. And you wonder why you're insecure and why you don't look good in photos. Well, you can change that. It is possible. You can improve your own circumstances in this element, but you don't want to put in the hard work. You'd rather buy a car rather than get on the ground and do 100 push-ups. I don't know about you, but for me, buying a car seems to be a lot more harder than getting on the ground and doing push-ups. It's also quite difficult to maintain your weight. It's easy to just stuff your face full of food, and that is the hard work. The hard work is discipline, sticking to a strict regimen, eating well. Even if it's a little more expensive, the outcomes and results speak for themselves. The third thing which is important is being attractive. Being attractive is not that difficult. In aggregate, human beings aren't that ugly. What we do to ourselves and how we portray ourselves is what makes ourselves unattractive. What people get wrong about attractiveness is that they think they can buy their way out of their other flaws, but they are focusing on the wrong things entirely when they do so. Buying shoes from Foot Locker is what makes them attractive. They think wearing Supreme is what makes them attractive. If you're completely disgusting, being completely disgusting but having nice shoes does not change the fact that you're absolutely repulsive. But it's a lot harder to stop being repulsive than it is to have a quick fix solution, or so you think, such as purchasing clothes. Thinking that there are easy solutions is the problem. It's why does not work for you. Attractiveness is really just common sense things. The hard part of being attractive is sticking to a disciplined exercise and health regimen. Don't get acne, have a good jawline, and all these things can be done, but you have to maintain your body fat percentage. Learn to speak well, learn to make small talk, have charisma, learn to smile. These are all things that you can do, but because they are hard to get started with, it's what people tend to avoid. The key to being attractive is just not looking like a goddamn buffhead. Look at young Mormons who walk around on the street, for instance. What they do correctly is that they have good haircuts. They are just simple haircuts. They always look happy. They're not wearing anything expensive. They just have a simple button-down shirt with a tie sometimes. Yet that's what works for them, and it makes them look rather appealing. But also a lot of them tend to eat well because of their religious habits, which also helps a lot as well. Being attractive really is as simple as that. The hardest part of being attractive is to give up your terrible habits. It's learning to eat well. It's learning to be presentable. It's putting in work as opposed to just getting home and gaming. Instead of getting home and gaming, perhaps you should be going to the gym. If you want to look good, the secret is as simple as staying hydrated, avoiding alcohol, smoking, and UV exposure. Become intelligent. To be blunt, there's absolutely no excuse or reason to be retarded in this day and age. Constantly, I'm putting in research, I'm following the news, and looking around and trying to learn more where possible, even at my own work. There are so many ways to obtain free information out there. What I tend to do is that I'll download YouTube videos as an MP3 and then listen to them at work. This gives me news, politics, analysis, educational material. You can also purchase audiobooks and listen to them as you work and as you drive. You can acquire free books on archive.org. You're able to lease good quality books and read them for free without resorting to piracy. But this does just speak to all the ways that this is multi-layered. You need to be exceptional in all possible realms in order to truly succeed and to be the 1%. These are the things that you need to do, and they are hard work, but they are what will give you an edge. I truly believe that with all these factors, once you start working towards all of them, good things will come to be, and you will also rise to the top naturally. If you want to truly succeed and survive the UBI era that we could be going into with mass unemployment and AI, you need to be as exceptional and competitive as possible. The truth is that you do not have much time to get started. You're running out of time when it comes to getting rich. If you start building up your wealth in your 20s, compared to your 30s, you have a whole decade of compounding. You end up with twice the money that you would otherwise have. You're running out of time as you get older to become a more intelligent and knowledgeable person. As you get older, you get more stuck in your ways. It's a lot harder to learn new things. The older that you are, the more damage that has already been done from your existing habits. Drinking, smoking, UV exposure, that is going to make you less attractive. It's going to make you more dumb. The earlier you can start and get the right habits in place, the better for yourself, the easier it will be. Now I hope that you enjoyed this video and you can see my reasons as to why the middle class is dead. But there are solutions and ways that you can change your circumstances and to make life better for yourself. As Grant Cardone says, very wisely, be obsessed or be average. I have to say, being average nowadays is being dead. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Tycoon Jack.